My name is Tirsit Asfaw, and I'm an associate clinical professor at Weill Cornell Medicine. And I am delighted today to interview Dr. Bobby Garcia as the liaison for the American Urogynecologic Society Publications Committee. I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Garcia and a team of national and international experts come together to create a terminology report on cosmetic gynecology. Dr. Garcia led the effort of this very important document, and which we have. Dr. Garcia is currently an assistant residency program director at the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation at Lincoln Hospital. Dr. Garcia, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So I guess to start off, what was the need, or what was sort of like the knowledge void that led to the development of this document?
Well, cosmetic gynecology is a really interesting, it's just kind of really nebulous topic that it's kind of a medical procedure that people do, but there really isn't any evidence basis behind it. And a lot of that's driven from the business side of medicine. And so, I really consider cosmetic gynecology to be kind of like the Wild West of medicine, where people, once they have their medical license and they're board certified, then they can go off and do whatever it is that they want. Most of the time, these are cash pay procedures, and they're lacking any significant evidence. And for something that's so popular, it was kind of astounding to me that it hadn't been addressed by the academia.
Got it. Yes, it's absolutely used so often, so frequently. So given the sort of breadth and extent of it, how did you decide what the important points or the important concepts were that needed to be included in this report?
Well, I mean, that's another really interesting question, because you can't really do a PubMed search on cosmetic gynecology. I mean, well, technically you can, but it really isn't going to bring up anything. So the way we went about things is we took everybody that was there across the world who had an interest in cosmetic gynecology and said, we're just going to brainstorm and tell me what you consider cosmetic gynecology to be. And a lot of that involves going through social media, Facebook or Instagram, typing in cosmetic gynecology in a Google search, and the results were kind of astounding. And then from there, we were basically just kind of throwing darts at a wall. And we were able to kind of narrow down exactly what we thought cosmetic gynecology would be. But even that had some controversy associated with it.
I think that brings us to my next question. Clearly, there are things that we think are maybe for cosmetic reasons, but they may have other or sort of real clinical or sort of medical or surgical reasons. So you mentioned the controversy. So were there any challenges? I guess what were the main challenges and controversies that you encountered as you developed this document with the group?
So literally everything was controversial. And so if you take the entire population of people who are urogynecologists, there are a large percentage of them that don't think cosmetic gynecology, or believe that cosmetic gynecology has no place in medicine whatsoever. And that's an acceptable viewpoint. But for this document, we took the people who were interested in kind of exploring exactly what cosmetic gynecology is. And even amongst that cohort, it was still extremely controversial as to even just the definition of cosmetic gynecology. So for example, if you take a patient who describes vaginal laxity and she has a feeling of looseness during intercourse, is that a medical diagnosis, or is that something that's considered cosmetic gynecology? And then we get into the specific procedures like a hymenoplasty or a hymen reconstruction. And some people were saying that is cosmetic gynecology and others weren't. And it goes into autonomy and all of the ethical principles. The whole thing was a tangled up, I'll call it mess, but it was a lot of fun.
A lot of, testy waters. I guess I would imagine, given the international nature of this document, this was compiled with the sort of corroboration of AUGS and IUGA. I would imagine that, regional inputs probably are different.
Yes, very much so. And the procedures that people felt were acceptable in some regions are definitely not in others. And it's just, it was very good that it was a collaborative document. I think that was very important. One of the things that I will say, though, is that within this collaboration, is a collaboration between AUGS and IUGA. We are just the urogynecologists. So we make up one teeny tiny microcosm of the cosmetic market. So the majority of people who are doing these cosmetic procedures are actually plastic surgeons. So whenever they offer like a mommy makeover, and so they'll have a breast augmentation, a tummy tuck, and then they'll throw in a labiaplasty as well. So most women who, when they're looking for these cosmetic procedures, will see dermatology or plastic surgery. Now, some percentage of them will see their gynecologist, particularly if they're getting a pap smear, their annual exam, and the gynecologist is offering those services. So I think that is one of the weaknesses of the document. We didn't have input from plastic surgery or dermatology or other specialties. Now, I do want to put a caveat here. We debated that at the beginning, but it was so challenging to get everybody to agree, just amongst the urogynecologists, that to expand that out to other societies, at least for this initial document, would have been, it would have been climbing a very large wall. So.
Yeah. I think you start small and possibly, you know. So you mentioned, the lack of cross specialty collaboration on this. Who would you say this manuscript is targeted for? Who would you expect to sort of use this? And, are you expecting other specialists that are not your gynecologists or even within the field of OBGYN to sort of use this document? What are you doing to sort of, let people know that this exists? So hopefully that we're using the same language to address the things that we're doing.
Yeah, so I guess in a nutshell, this document is targeted towards me 10 years ago, basically. And so again, this is such a niche topic. So the people who are out there doing cosmetic gynecology, there's a couple of experts just across the country and across the world. And they, honestly, they probably don't really care about this terminology document because they've been doing what they're doing for 15, 20 years. They're extremely successful and they do excellent work. And then you have the academic urogynecologists at some of the big institutions, and they also aren't going to pay too much attention to this because there are very, very important urogynecological questions that need to be answered with the limited research funding and time people have. But again, I want to nail down this point that there are so many procedures that are being done out there that have absolutely no evidence. If you're lasering the labia, if you're lasering the vagina, if you're doing a labiaplasty using one technique versus another, and there's just no good outcome data. The only outcome data is all retrospective, and it's all biased because it's people basically publishing their results. And so it's a challenge there. And so I saw this quite a while back when I was going through my residency training, and I was interested in it, but it was almost like a faux pas. It wasn't something that I could really bring up in polite conversation or during interview. So if I went on my urogynecology interview trail and I said I want to be a cosmetic gynecologist, I wouldn't be a urogyne. I wouldn't have gotten into fellowship. And so really the purpose of this document is to see if there are other people who are potentially interested in cosmetic gynecology. And I know that there are because I've spoken to them and they've told me that they are, when they're going through the process of fellowship, to try to solidify this particular area into a sub niche of urogynecology that can develop and thrive and then have evidence base.
Absolutely. I think to collect some of that evidence, we have to speak the same language, right? So what I'm calling one thing may not necessarily be, we may be doing two separate procedures for something that we think is the same, but actually is not really the same thing.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, what future direction would you anticipate or would like to see as it relates to this document? So what would you hope will come out of this? I think you answered that a little bit in your previous response.
Yes. Well, I think we really need to cut the fat. So we have to determine, there's some aspects of cosmetic gynecology that are less controversial and some that are more. So I'll give you an example of something that's extremely controversial. So the injection of platelet-rich plasma into the anterior vaginal wall and into the clitoris, that's been termed the O shot, that's been trademarked. People use that as kind of like a sex booster. And there is some theoretical basis behind the use of platelet-rich plasma to stimulate. There's no good data, basically. And so one of the next things that we're going to be doing, or we're looking to do, is to do a research study, a randomized controlled study to either offer people an injection of platelet-rich plasma into the anterior vaginal wall and clitoris, or saline. And this is going to be double blinded because all the data that's out there are people who are offering these injections, and the patients know that they're getting them and they're paying cash for them. And then they're coming back and saying that everything worked great. So there's a ton of bias associated with that. So I think that's going to be the next step. And then really looking systematically at every single cosmetic gynecology procedure. And if there's no good data, if it's harmful, if there's any issue with it whatsoever, you cut it. And then as we go along in the next 5, 7, 10 years, hopefully we'll get to a point to where cosmetic gynecology will be to urogynecology in the same way that aesthetic or cosmetic surgery is to plastic and reconstructive surgery. So within your training for urogynecology, everyone, you know, they do mid-urethral slings and Botox, sacral neuromodulation, prolapse, and then a rotation of that, or maybe, you know, 6 weeks of that can be spent in someone's office doing cosmetic procedures, because, you know, the labiaplasties and particularly like the vaginal tightening surgeries, that is pelvic reconstructive medicine. That should be done by us and not by other specialties. It's just that they've taken kind of advantage of this opportunity, which is good for them. But I think now it's time for us to join the race.
Wonderful. Well, that's what I have. Thank you so much for your time. And, you know, I hope this document will be useful for the years to come.
Yeah, well, I just want to give a special thank you to AUGS and IUGA for the opportunity to, it was a little bit of a crazy topic when it was pitched, and I'm glad that they gave us kind of the running room to be able to publish it.
It's definitely a big gap in knowledge. So anyways, wonderful. Thank you so much, Bobby or Dr. Garcia. Bye-bye.
Bye.